now listening to the Gabba Gabba Hunt Talks podcast, where we bring you conversations with people connected to the Carolinas underground music scene. Hey there, and welcome to episode 10 of Gabba Gabba Hunt Talks. On this week's episode, I have Dave Vause, currently of the Poontanglers, but he's played in Spite, Kudzu Ganja, Dirty Box, and Smoking Rocks as well. Now, a couple of real quick notes about this episode. This episode is the first episode I've recorded via webcam. We used Zoom to record, and when we tested it out on Friday night, everything worked great. Then when I recorded on Saturday night, I went back and listened to it, and for some reason, my voice is modulated low. Can't figure out what I did between the time that I tested it and the time we recorded, but it is what it is. Sounds like I'm in witness protection, and it's really off-putting to me, but I get used to it when I listen to it, so you will too. Now, I figured that completely out and have a better recording setup now, and you hear the results of that in some pickup recording that we did a couple of nights later. Recording via webcam was a little bit awkward, and I think we were both just trying to figure out how to keep the conversation going. But that'll get better over time. So we picked up and recorded a few more stories to add to the podcast, and the sound is much, much better. Figuring all this out one step at a time, and that's just one of the speed bumps that we may hit. I also want to say that I am running late with this episode, even later than I thought I would be. But the original intention for putting this out on Wednesdays was that I am off work on Wednesdays, and I always figured that if I couldn't get it done Tuesday night, that would give me all day Wednesday to get it done. So, while I don't plan to make this a habit, I would like to have them out Wednesday morning. It's always possible that they may come out late. Just keep an eye on the Facebook page, and you'll know if there's a delay. And one more thing before I get to the episode, I want to thank this week's sponsor, Hobo Wolfman Records. I've talked about them before. They put out the new record by The Fill-Ins. They put out the Body Bag CD. They really put out some great music and have a lot of fun stuff on their website. You should go check it out, hobowolfmanrecords.com. They currently have all their releases half off on the website. You can also download the All Comps Are Bastards compilation for free. And they've got a lot of other fun stuff on that website. I recently purchased one of the mystery bags, and it was well worth the money. Just go check it out. Support people that are doing good things. Now, I'm not going to ramble on anymore. I want to get right to this week's episode because I've kept you waiting long enough.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Okay, got that fixed.
Yeah, echo's gone now too. Good.
Cool. Good. So, I just forgot to turn my speakers off. I was hearing it and thought it was coming through my headphones, but it wasn't. It was coming through the speakers. So I have Dave Vause with me here today. And Dave, me and you met, I guess it was 1999. And we probably met before that, but that was when we worked on that CD, the Accident CD.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure we met at like Milestone and stuff. And you and Eric worked together before we recorded. Yep. That was, I guess, when we first got to really know each other.
Yeah, Eric and I worked together at that little bagel place on 7th Street where Stanley Drug used to be. So that's where I first met him. He and I, we had a lot of fun working together at that place. We were always cutting up and just having a good time. But Eric's always a real cool guy, and he's always talking about his punk band, and they need to come out and see you guys. And
so when we started working on that CD, we recorded it at Eric's dad worked at a carpet shop at the time.
Yep.
Not sure, he may still work out there, I think. Pretty sure he does, actually. And so we decided to record in a carpet shop. And
yep.
It worked out, I guess, okay. It worked out all right.
Deadest room ever. There was absolutely, no echoes going on in there for sure.
Yeah, there was just carpet samples everywhere and rolls of carpet. And we called it Deep Shag Studio. Or we jokingly call it Purgatory too, because I had that laminate flooring, that Purgo.
That's right. It was a cool project to do. That was all recorded on using Jody Derrick's gear from the old basement studio that he ran all through the 90s.
Yeah.
And he had moved out of that house where the basement was and moved to where he still lives now in Pineville. And he had the 24-track ADAT rig, the big 32 channel Mackie console, and Jody had a really nice setup in the basement there. And we kind of figured out a way to break it down and get that rig out and do it remote. I think the Accident CD, we may have done 16-track ADAT. I don't recall if we did 16 before.
I can't remember. Probably 16.
Yeah, probably 16, because I think he was down to 2 machines by then. Because those machines were always breaking down, man. It was just like they were, the biggest pain in the ass dealing with the maintenance on those ADAT machines. They're basically VCRs,
Yeah.
He had a smaller 24 track Mackie console, and we just kind of plugged all the channels direct into the ADAT machines, and basically I think we just kind of tracked it live and then overdubbed the vocals later, if I remember correctly, back at
we
did.
Yeah, we did. I remember going back out there to do the vocals.
Yeah, it's a fun project. I actually pulled it out. I found the CD and pulled it out and listened to it the other day. I don't know if this was the case at the time. I heard a lot of kind of clipping on the snare drum, so I don't know if I was just like, I don't know if you've noticed that as well. I mean, I think it seemed like we went a little hot in the mix down. I don't recall if you guys had it mastered or if maybe I did some bit of mastering on it just on the computer at the time, but.
Yeah, I know we never had it mastered after you gave it to us, and I've noticed that about it too. That's the only part about it that it just it doesn't sound the best to me. But other than that, it's a great CD. It sounds awesome.
It was a great performance, man. I mean, you guys just really killed it. It was really easy. I remember we knocked it all out in a day as far as tracking all the songs. What was it, like 10 songs or something like that? Yeah.
I think maybe 12. It was a few songs.
Yeah, it was fun.
And we've always liked that kind of a challenge to knock out that many songs in a short amount of time. We still do it. I mean, Ben doesn't like it, but I love it. But I've always just felt like if we're going to record, let's go ahead and record everything we can.
Yeah. Let's get it down, get it live. That's always the best way to do it, in my opinion.
It was just kind of a lucky thing, I guess, that Eric's dad worked in that carpet shop, and so that gave us a good opportunity to play in somewhere where we didn't have to play in a practice room with bare walls where everything's going to echo. But I'm sure it had its own challenges because it was so dead.
It was so dead. I remember because they had just the kind of rows of carpet samples on like those stands and stuff, and it was actually really nice as baffles for the amps and the drums and stuff. But I mean, there was just like no room sound whatsoever. Which I mean, you listen to the CD now, you can kind of tell it's pretty very clean for a punk record. But I think it came out pretty good.
Yeah, I love it. I still like it. I'll play some of it on here, and I eventually want to put that on Spotify.
Cool.
Just to have it out there. I might do like a whole Accidents anthology and put it on Spotify. That way I can put it all on and pay one price.
Do you still have the DAT master from that?
I do have the DAT master from that somewhere.
If we could track down a DAT player, I wonder if we could remaster it and maybe dial it back a little bit and kind of get some of that hotness out of there.
Yeah, I bet my buddy Dwayne still has his DAT player.
Yep.
So might check into that. But I remember we were recording, and it was in one of those little strip mall places. And I guess we were told that it was only, I think we did it on a Sunday or a Saturday. I can't remember. It was probably Sunday.
Yeah.
Told that we were going to be the only place open, or nobody was going to be open that weekend. But apparently, one of the other stores, there were people at that other store. So they came and interrupted us at one point, just making sure that we were supposed to be there. And that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, a band broke into a carpet store to have a jam session, right?
Well, I can imagine, you show up for work and you're all of a sudden you're hearing this loud music coming through the walls.
That's funny. I'd forgotten about that.
It's a carpet shop. What's all that noise? Yeah, I was real happy with the way that turned out, and I've listened to it. One time I took a break from it for years, and then I listened to it a few years ago for the first time in a long time, and I was just really blown away with how good it sounded. And I'm proud of that. I'm really proud of it, and glad you were a part of that. So what made you, when you first started playing music, what made you decide to pick up a guitar?
The earliest memory I have is, my grandfather playing guitar, and he just had an acoustic laying around. I didn't play it very often. I don't think he, was really into it. It might have been something he picked up later in life, but he would he would pick it up, and I'd beg him to play, and he plays probably just some country tunes or something like that. He was a big country fan, back in the day, and it really really piqued my interest for the instrument. And that was right. That was probably when I was 7, 8 years old. I was pretty young.
Yeah.
I didn't actually get a guitar myself until I was probably 10 or 11.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up in Columbia, so this was in Columbia at the time. Started getting into rock and roll. I remember actually like one of the first rock and roll songs I heard on the radio was "I Love Rock and Roll" by Joan Jett, and that was just like a huge game changer for me. Just hearing music of that type, and at such a young age, around 10 years old or whenever, I think I was 80 or 81, and just really got me into rock in general. So I got my first acoustic. Didn't really take to it at first. I kind of goofed around with it a little bit, but it was hard. It's small hands. Hurt my fingers, and didn't really take to it for the first couple of years. But then, probably when I was around 12 or 13, my dad bought me it was a Flying V. It was like a no-name Flying V, and my dad was a career Army guy, so he got it out of the Army post-exchange catalog. It's probably like a $100 guitar or something like that.
Yeah,
I think I remember the brand of it was Chicago. So I've looked for these things online. I've never been able to find anything about it, so I don't know if I have the name wrong, but it was a pretty cool looking Flying V with double humbuckers, and it was probably a pretty big piece of shit, but it was good enough for me at the time. I didn't have an amp or anything, so I would just plug it straight into my stereo in my room, and just crank the volume until it got distorted.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started learning songs, playing along with stuff like Kiss and Sabbath. It's growing up in Columbia in the 80s, so there's a lot of classic rock, Nazareth, AC/DC, Aerosmith, stuff like that, and just kind of goofing around. Never really got very good at it, but just playing really basic power chord type stuff. That was some of the earliest I got into recording as well, when I was playing the guitar through my stereo, and I would record onto I would plug in through the stereo and put a cassette in my jam box, and put it up to the speaker, and record on the jam box, and then I would take the cassette out and put it in the stereo, and put a new fresh cassette in the jam box, and play it back, so I could just like poor man's multi-track, just piping it back through the stereo back into the jam box again. So that was a lot of fun doing that. I learned how to play a lot of the songs by doing that, just playing along with them, and trying to put multiple guitar tracks down, or maybe even singing a little bit or stuff like that.
Yeah, we used to experiment with stuff like that. Like we'd put Scotch tape over the erase head on a cassette deck, so the second time you recorded it, it would just record over what you'd already recorded.
Oh yeah.
So we used to do that when we were younger and try to put together stuff like that. It didn't sound that great, but
yeah, in those days, 13, 14, 15, I was playing, with me and my friends, like I said, we're in a lot of classic rock, got introduced to Zeppelin and Sabbath, started getting into, some of the early hip hop, like, Run DMC and Beastie Boys. I really love that. And, then I discovered Van Halen, man. And then, Eddie was just like, I just couldn't believe what the guy was doing with the guitar.
Yeah.
Of course, I couldn't even, attempt to do any of that. If I could even play any Van Halen rhythms in those days, I was happy to be able to pull it off. But I was just, that's what really, got me into, what you could do on the guitar as an instrument. And it just was a long time Van. I still love Van Halen. I think I'm wearing a Van Halen t-shirt right now. But Eddie was just the man, dude. In those days, it was just like amazing music those guys were putting out.
Yeah, I always loved them.
Yeah,
still do.
So when I was 15, so like a sophomore in high school, that's when I moved to Charlotte. So like halfway through my sophomore year, and transferred over. Went to Myers Park and graduated from Myers Park eventually. And kind of got away from the guitar after I moved here. Stopped playing, for a couple of years. I actually sold the Flying V, which I regret. I always regret every instrument I've ever sold.
Oh yeah.
Eventually, I would still love to have that thing, even though it was probably a piece of crap. It was kind of the nostalgia of it. It'd be cool to have around.
I had a Rickenbacker knockoff that I wish I still had. I traded it for a skateboard years ago.
So I got like my senior year in high school. Or junior and senior year, I was hanging out with a lot of skaters at the time at Myers Park, and that's when I kind of got introduced to punk rock.
Yeah,
those guys were always listening to Black Flag, Dead Milkmen, Agent Orange, stuff like that. Yeah, which I enjoyed, hanging out with those guys. But in those days, I started getting a lot more into metal. Loved Iron Maiden, Metallica, Megadeth. Could just listen to that stuff all day long.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a good friend in high school. His name is Craig McKinney, and he was a really good guitar player at the time, and he kind of inspired me to pick it back up again. So I went and bought a Fender Squier Stratocaster at Reliable Music. This would have been about 86 or 87, I guess. And
Okay.
I still have that guitar. I actually played it, most of the time. That was like my main guitar in Spite. It's, swapped out the pickups in it, and it was actually a really, really good sounding guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, those Japanese Squiers are, sell for, a lot of people really seek those things out these days. Surprisingly, it was a $200 guitar at the time, but now you see them on eBay for $600-700. It's pretty crazy. Started really getting a lot more into playing, and after I graduated high school, started jamming with some guys. Never really did anything serious. We were just mostly goofing around with
Mm-hmm.
covers and stuff like that. And never played any gigs or anything. Just kind of jammed around in the living room.
That was the first time that you played in an actual band, just besides playing by yourself.
Yeah, I would say so. And that, kind of, I think that's, for younger guitar players, that's where you really start, getting a lot better, is when you're playing with other people. It's one thing to, take it from, playing along with songs, learning songs in the bedroom. But when you get out there and you start playing with other guys, particularly if you can find guys that are just a little bit better than you, it kind of, it stretches you, and you start really growing in your abilities. So yeah, we mostly did covers, the classic rock stuff. Was really into Metallica at the time, so we played a lot of Metallica songs. I think at one point I wasn't a very strong lead player at all. In fact, I wasn't a good lead player at all. But could play a lot of the Metallica rhythms and learn almost all of Master of Puppets. I think we just sit around and just play that album, front to back. But it was a lot of fun, and definitely got a lot better in terms of playing rhythm guitar by playing that stuff with other guys.
Yeah. Did that band did you even come up with a name for that band, or was it just a bunch of guys that got together and played?
It was just a bunch of guys. It was me, a friend of mine was actually an excellent drummer, David Wayner. He was from Statesville. I think he lives in Winston, or actually he was from Winston-Salem, was living in Statesville at the time. And I think he's actually back in Winston now. And he was an excellent drummer. He was, super into Rush, kind of really introduced me to Rush, and, was huge, Neil Peart fan. And, we goofed around with a lot of Rush songs and things too in those days. After that, I started, after that kind of, fizzled out, I started playing open mics a lot around town. So I would go to like some of the, the bars around town and just play acoustic and sing. And that's where I really started. That was the first time I ever, started playing in front of other people.
Okay.
So that was just kind of my earliest exposure to, getting up in front of folks and, again, just playing cover songs and things like that. And, the typical stuff you hear in bars in those days. And, but it was a lot of fun, learned a lot from doing it. And just from doing that, I got, pretty comfortable, just playing in front of people in general. So by the time I, got into bands a couple of years later, getting on stage was really no big deal by that point.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You hear a lot of times, a lot of people do it the other way around. They play in a band first, and then they get up the nerve to play solo on the stage at an open mic. But I know there are plenty of people out there that's all they ever do is just the open mic. They go out and they play, and they never play in a band. It's just a guitar, and they sing and do that every week or every couple of weeks.
Yeah, and Charlotte actually has a really strong open mic scene. There are a lot of really good open mics around for, whether it's just solo and duet kind of stuff, and even full band stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of places that are doing that, like Shannon at Moochie's, and Smokey Joe's does one. There, several around town that do open mics throughout the week.
Yeah, Tommy's just doing open mics.
Yep.
I think on Wednesday nights or one night of the week. Can't remember exactly which. This is not a plug for Tommy. I mean, it is a plug for Tommy's.
Sure.
But, if I knew the day of the week, we would actually promote that. But right now, it's not much to promote over there. So
right, yeah.
But go to Tommy's whenever you can. Again, please do.
Absolutely.
So when did you play? When did you get around to playing in a band that you like, an original band?
It would have been when I was around 20 or 21. I hooked up with some guys, and it was actually it was one main guy, Brian Hartzog, and he wrote a lot of all the songs were songs that he had already written, and it was pretty poppy stuff. But that was where I met Mike Presley, who was the original drummer for Spite. He was the drummer in that band.
Okay.
So I did that for about a year. We played out a little bit. We played at Heretics a couple of times.
Okay.
One thing we played at the I don't know if a lot of people know this, but remember Heretics eventually switched over to the Aardvark.
Yeah.
And well, the Aardvark originally was in Noda, right across the street from where Fat City was, and we played there back in the day when you just didn't go to Noda. There was just no reason to go down there. It was a pretty bad neighborhood, and the Aardvark was a tiny little place. But I think that was probably one of our first gigs, actually, was playing at the Aardvark there in Noda. That was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. Like I said, most of the songs were pre-written, so it kind of felt, from my perspective, a little like a cover band. They're good tunes, but not really my thing. I wanted to do something a little heavier.
Yeah.
So that's when I want to say it was probably late '92 is when I met Chris Boone from Spite. He had an ad going in Creative Loafing at the time, looking to, start a heavy band. And, he and I hooked up, started writing songs together, really just the two of us at first, for the first couple of months. Just the two of us, just writing tunes at my apartment. And that was, some of the earliest, Spite songs, came out of that. Then eventually recruited Mike Presley, the drummer that, I played with in the previous band, and kind of took off from there. We eventually found Six, on playing bass, and he was just like a really good fit at first. Actually, before that, there was a bass player in Spite before Six. There was an old high school buddy of mine, Bob Brower, and that was he was just he was going to college. He was just home for that first summer, which would have been I guess the summer of '93. So we just kind of goofed around as we were kind of still just writing songs and trying to get the band going. At first, actually, Spite had a second guitar player as well, but that was fairly short lived. We used to practice. At the time, I was working a job in air cargo out at the airport. So I worked in a warehouse, and there was like some extra rooms, and I managed to talk my boss into letting us use one of those extra rooms that they had. And we started practicing there. So we'd go out to the airport and practice in a small room, but right beside the warehouse there.
That's cool.
We eventually got kicked out. Let's just say due to bad behavior, and also it was kind of it was kind of frowned upon because it was actually a custom secured warehouse. So we probably shouldn't have been there in the first place, and because we handled like international cargo and stuff. So all the stuff was in various stages of clearance through customs. But then Mike Presley was good friends with the guys in Godswater, and that's when he got us. He talked to those guys, and from there we went over and got a room at Rehearsal Lot.
Okay, so I didn't really know that much about Rehearsal Lot. I remember it, remember the name, but I learned a lot about it when I had Negulators on episode 1.
Yeah, Rehearsal Lot was. I mean, it was great. I mean, it's right there on North Tryon, just as you come out of just like the main part of uptown there. And there are a lot of bands there. Godswater, Kudzu Ganja, It Could Be Nothing. A lot of the bands that were really playing around in the scene in those days. Ilium, which was Chris Mitchum's band in those days. Many others. You come in, and I think Wednesday or Thursday night was like the busiest night. So you just like walk in the door and you'd have like 8 bands all playing at once. It's just like you couldn't even hear yourself think. It was so loud in there. But it was a blast. It was a party and a lot of great bands and a lot of people hanging out together and just having a great time.
I remember all those bands. Those bands are, you mentioned those bands. It reminds me of when I got into playing in the music scene. So that takes me back when I hear all those names. It's like, oh yeah, I remember them. And they all played shows together too.
Yeah. We did just the kind of the Rehearsal Lot group. Candy Pig was another one. It was pretty big there. So we just all those bands just were always doing shows together as a Jeremiah's, O'Malley's, which later became Tabloids, Heretics. A lot of the cool. There were so many cool clubs that you could hear a lot of good music in those days. It was just a really great scene at the time. I think still is, but kind of there's some nostalgia for that early mid '90s stuff.
Yeah, because that was right around the time that the Milestone, with Penny closed Milestone.
Yep.
And then about a year later, I don't remember the exact timeline. She opened Tremont, but back in those days, it was Heretics was active, Jeremiah's, all the places you named, where you went to go play.
Yeah, Spite. We recorded our first demo as a 4-song demo at the Sonic Cafe studio, which is on Commonwealth. And I actually was doing something of an apprenticeship there as well at the time. So did some projects with a lot of actually backing up a little bit. I used to run sound for a lot of college bands down at Winthrop and Rock Hill, like at the Money and a couple other bars I can't remember the name of, but recorded some of those guys. Well, we went in and recorded that first 4-song demo with Spite, and actually still had the second guitar player at the time. So we had the second guitar on that first 4-song demo that we did. Started playing at Heretics quite a bit. I mean, Heretics was kind of one of our go-tos as far as gigs. I remember I used to hang out at Heretics a lot as well when we weren't playing there, just like seeing bands, and that was like one of the. And this probably would have been before we got in at Rehearsal. I was the first time I saw Kudzu Ganja. Was at Heretics, and another show I saw there that I always have a memory of. I got to be kind of pretty good friends with Kevin, who was running Heretics, and I would sometimes actually work the door there. And I worked the door at Heretics, and I like the Murder Junkies played there with Jeff Clayton on vocals. So that was a pretty wild scene, man. That was a lot of fun. But I really miss it. Heretics. It was just a fun place to play.
It was a fun place to play. That was like kind of a no rules type of place.
It really was.
Well, the rules were really loose there.
Very much so.
But I have a lot of good memories of playing that place. That was a lot of fun. It was not quite as prestigious as Milestone or anywhere else really, but it was fun.
So I think it was probably '94. We started recording the full length CD with Spite, Crucial Moment of Insertion, and we did that at a White Room with Conrad Hunter, and that was again with Mike. We were down to one guitar by then. Didn't have a lot of money, so we kind of rushed. I listen back to it, nowadays, and I kind of hear a lot of stuff that I wish I, could have done better with personally, or maybe in terms of performance. But it was kind of an expensive studios, and we didn't have a ton of money, so we were kind of rushed trying to. I think we recorded 6 or 7 songs at White Room by the end of it. that first the first few sessions we did was with Mike Presley on drums, and I think we recorded 5 at the time, and then Mike left the band, and that's when we got Byron McDonald on drums.
Yeah.
After Byron joined up, we really actually just we started writing just a ton of music. Six and I just really, we really meshed well together in terms of, come up with riffs, and just kind of, he would come up with a riff, and I'd play something on it, and vice versa, and we wrote something like in the 3 or 4 years that we were in that band together, 60, 70 songs, I think. After Byron joined, we went back to the White Room and recorded 2 more songs, which is the tracks, the first track, Give, and I think the first track, Closed, and I think the third track, Give, were the only tracks that Byron played on that CD. And then we had, again, due to budgetary concerns, we ended up recording some live tracks. So we recorded a set at the Milestone, which I actually had my old guitar teacher, Todd Miller, came out and brought out an 8-track ADAT, and mic'd us up, and we recorded a show there and put 3 tracks from that gig on the CD to kind of round it out to 10 songs. One story that sticks out in my mind is when, like I had said earlier, Spike played in Wilmington quite a bit, and often with Weed Eater or other local Wilmington bands. But one club we played at quite a bit that I mentioned before was called the Far Side. It originally was called the Bourgeois Pig, and later rebranded itself as the Far Side. But it was right in downtown Wilmington there, and the owner of the Far Side was just a super cool guy, and he just loved us. Just loved having us in. But something he did a few times is he would let us, when we finished a gig, he would let us stay at the place. So we would, kind of lock in the club overnight, and gave us free reign over the bar and stuff, and we would just continue just kind of drinking and partying all night long. One evening in particular, Byron. So the Far Side, it was a really small club, but it had 2 levels. There was, kind of a second level and a balcony that overlooked the first level. And, there's one night in particular, I remember Byron, he was, being Byron, and he was just running up the stairs and then climbing over the railing of the balcony and just jumping over the edge, and just landing on the first floor. And he did that over and over and over again. Finally we had to make him stop. We were just worried, he was just going to break his legs, which would have, been difficult to explain to the cops, why you're locked in a bar at 4 o'clock in the morning and everybody's drinking, and this guy just jumped off a balcony and snapped his leg or something like that. But that was, I actually have a picture. I have a great picture of Byron in action, leaping off the balcony there. So always, cracks me up when I see that one. But that's just, kind of what you got with Byron, man. He was just always full of energy, and just always having fun in everything that he did. When we were, playing shows, I mean, you saw him, he would always, set up his drum kit sideways, and whenever he would have like a break or something in between songs, he would stand up and just kind of march around the stage, and have his drumsticks in the air and just clenching his teeth, and then the song kick back in, and he would just leap back into his
Yeah.
school and just be slamming again instantly, man. He just had such incredible energy. It was so much fun playing with him.
Yeah.
I always loved when I would when we'd be playing and kind of catch his eye or something like that, and we'd catch each other's gaze, and he would just have the just look at me and just have the biggest grin on his face. He just loved doing it. He just absolutely loved playing. And just put everything he had into every single set. It was just an amazing player to play with. This is kind of a funny story. We played in New York City once, and it was just a one-off show. We drove all the way to New York City and back for one show at a shitty little club in kind of in the Village in Manhattan. It's called the Nightingale Club, I think. I don't know if it's still there or not. Probably not. It was 25 years ago, but we kind of got there early, and we're opening for another guy. So we kind of spent the day just kind of hanging around, exploring the Village. We had the CD out at the time, so we kind of had the idea to try to get some people in there to. We started handing out CDs, and we kind of wrote with like a Sharpie on the front of the CD, "Spite live at Nightingale tonight at 9 p.m. or whatever." I actually still have one of those CDs where we wrote that. I saved one and just handing them out to people on the street. And, it's New York City, and people weren't particularly receptive to handing something on the street. And I'm certain that absolutely nobody came as a result of that. The club was funny. It was tiny. It was like probably about the size of like Tommy's or something like that. Just like a long, narrow club, but the orientation was back. So if you imagine like if you had Tommy's and you have the bar kind of along the long side of the wall, imagine if the stage was right across from the bar.
Oh, okay.
Instead of being at the end of the room, it was like literally like 6 feet from the bar.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a weird layout. So we played. It was us and the bartender and the guy working the door, and that was it. There was nobody else in there at all. So as soon as we finish, literally as we're breaking down, the place, just fills up. And the funny story is we were opening for Anthony Krizan, I think is how you say his name, and he was the guitar player for the Spin Doctors.
Oh, okay.
And I guess it was like his solo project. So this cat comes walking in, and he's wearing like a feather coat, and he's got like a beautiful girl on each arm. Yeah. And behind him is like 100 people, and so they were all just basically waiting on the sidewalk for us to finish. And then as soon as we're done, they all come walking in and start partying for this guy. So it was kind of a weird lineup to have a metal band opening for some dude from the Spin Doctors or whatever. But and I think we got paid $40 that night, which probably barely covered gas to get home in those days. It was an experience. A lot of times when you do gigs on the road like that, you weren't doing it for money, obviously. You're doing it kind of just to get out there and have the experience. But it was a lot of fun doing that show in particular. It was really cool. Yeah. Chris had a crappy old Chevy van that we traveled around in. It was like a 1974 Chevy van. Didn't have any seats in the back or anything. There was always kind of a battle over who got to ride shotgun. Yeah. Because the other guys would have to lay on the floor in the back of the van or whatever. On the way home from New York City, we started having engine troubles, and we're coming back down 77, which kind of winds down through the mountains and stuff. The van is just like really struggling. We're going up these hills through the mountains and stuff, and the van was just like struggling, just like grinding and making these horrible sounds, and wondering as we're approaching every hill, are we going to make it to the top of this one or not, or will it finally die? I think it took us, man, probably like 15 hours to get home, because the van was just running terribly. I started wondering if we're going to make it home at all. Mm-hmm. We stopped and bought some spark plugs at one point, and replaced all the spark plugs, and just trying to think of anything we could, replacing the air filter and stuff on the way home, but nothing seemed to work. And luckily we made it all the way home. There was a lot of tension in the van on that ride home. Chris was clearly, he was driving. Chris always drove. He never let anybody drive the van, but he was clearly pissed, and we were all pissed and tired and hungry. We didn't have any money for cigarettes or food or anything, and just wanted more than anything to get home. And we kind of started arguing and stuff, and things got pretty heated on that drive home. And that was actually kind of towards the end. That was probably kind of the beginning of the end, really. Yeah. The tension that particular trip brought about. I think we played probably one more show in Wilmington, and then came back and played one show at Fat City after that, and then that iteration of Spike kind of came to an end soon after that.
Yeah.
That last gig at Fat City is kind of a classic Byron story. It was a really good gig. I actually have it on video. I have it posted on YouTube. You search on YouTube for Spike Fat City, the entire show in there. The video quality was terrible. It was VHS, and the sound quality is of course terrible. It's kind of a fun video to watch. So we talked about before that Byron always used to tear his shit up at the end of every gig, just smash the drum kit and throw it around, and so this gig was no different. So at the end of the last song, Byron's kicking everything around and slamming stuff around, and he grabs his kick drum. This is in the video if you watch it. He grabs his kick drum and he kind of holds it in front of him, and he kind of does a suplex move where he kind of just fell backwards and just pulled the kick drum over his head and just slammed it on the floor behind him.
Yeah.
And of course he was naked, like he was at the end of every Spike show. So this is going to get a little cringy. One of the lugs of his bass drum got caught on his sack and tore it open. So this was of course an alcohol fueled show like any other, and I don't think he realized it at the time. We kind of found out later. It's actually kind of the next day he realized something wasn't quite right down there, and had to go to the doctor and get it kind of patched up or whatever. But that's one of those classic Byron stories that a lot of people who were there talked about for years after. Again, just speaking to his energy, just not caring, just always in the moment, and just wanted to put on a show. This is what he always did. I miss him. He's a great dude, man. It would be interesting to see Byron on Facebook these days or something like that, to see the kind of stuff that he would be posting or into. He was such a good dude.
Again, I remember him. I didn't really know him that well, but everybody I do know that ever speaks of him always speaks highly of him.
Yeah, he was a great guy.
I remember Byron. I remember that's when I saw you guys play, because I think Eric was working with him as well. Did he work with you guys at the?
Did Eric work at Bayou Kitchen? Because
he did. He worked.
Yeah, that was where we worked. Yeah, so that was where we worked with Byron together. So Eric and I were both cooks at Bayou Kitchen, and Byron, washed dishes there. The tiniest kitchen ever, man. I mean,
the
Bayou Kitchen was so small, so you'd have 3 guys in there, and it was crowded. Hot. Yeah, so that was 95. I think we eventually released that CD, and that was when we kind of Six's brother-in-law Marty was kind of an early guy on the web in those days, and he set us up with a website, and that was kind of my first exposure to the internet, period, around that time, and there wasn't really a lot on the web in those days.
No, there wasn't.
So we actually started getting some gigs, as a result of that website, and some of them were pretty weird. One in particular that sticks out of my mind was this guy who owned it. It turned out to be a restaurant in Greensboro, and it was called the Screaming Parrot. And so he emailed us, really, said he loved us, really wanted us to come up, and play his, he called it a club. So, we kind of went back and forth, and we're like, okay, we'll go up there and do that. So we went up there and did that, and we took Kudzu Ganja with us. Turned out it was a restaurant, and so we're kind of setting up, and people are don't even remember what kind of restaurant it was. Probably just your typical tavern type stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
So people were like, eating dinner and stuff while we're like setting up in a corner in this restaurant. Kudzu goes on first, and they crank up, and just like not even a minute into the first song, the owner was running over. It's like, "Oh, you guys are too loud! You're too loud! Too loud! You got to turn it down! Turn it down!" We're like, "Okay, all right, guys, turn it down a little bit." So I turned it down. I mean, I don't think it was even really overly loud or anything. Just like I don't know what the guy was expecting, or got me to wondering later if he had even listened to any of the music at all, if he knew what he was getting, or if he just saw a band on the web and wanted to get one into his place. So probably by I think the third or fourth song of Kudzu's set, he called the cops.
Oh wow!
So I mean, he didn't even tell us to stop. He just called the cops, and so the cops came in and told us to stop. So Spite didn't even play. We just broke all our stuff down and kind of got out of there. And cops kind of hassled us a little bit, but eventually got out of there. But one of the more interesting gigs we got from the early Spite website.
I swear he invited us to play.
Yeah. It was like he really wanted us to be here. It's not like we just showed up.
You talk about how the internet, there wasn't much on it back in those days. There really wasn't. And I was a fairly early adopter to it because my dad was always in computers, and we were on bulletin boards around, local bulletin boards way back in the day. And so like AOL came along, Prodigy, all that. I was on that, but then got on the internet pretty early. And immediately I started looking for bands online. Like, they got to have websites, But, we did a website pretty early on. The Accidents did. It's still out there. I think I've talked about it here before. You can find it through the Wayback Machine. But I'm still pretty proud about all of that. And I think it helped us out a little bit. It helped get us a little bit of exposure as well at that time.
Yeah, I checked on the Wayback Machine to see if the Spite site was on there, and actually Wayback doesn't go back that far. So I actually asked Six's brother-in-law kind of recently if he had it archived or something like that, just because I kind of like to see it. He said, "No, it's long gone." So you can see that. I think it was just a single page, and we didn't even have any music on there because it wasn't really a good way to do that in those days. To actually put music on. You can upload a WAV file, but everybody's on dial-up, and it would take hours to download one song.
When I did our website, I put, if I see another Volvo with the Grateful Dead sticker on it, I'll keep my guts up. I think that's the name of the song. Which is, the song's about as long, it's about as long as it takes to say that. So it's a short song. That's the only reason it got put up there, because you could actually download that one in a reasonable amount of time. So you said it was about 4 or 5 years that you were in Spite.
Yeah, so it was what's called a separation. That was probably around the spring of '96. So Chris and Byron decided to move on and go in a different direction. And that was when they got Josh Pratt and John Crumpton. Yeah, I think it was around the spring of '96, and still a rehearsal at the time. Six and I continued, jamming a little bit. Still writing some stuff, but never really got anything off the ground. He eventually went on to join up with, actually, Chris's band. I think I said Ilium earlier, but they were actually Gentleman Death at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And then I think when Six joined up with them is when they became Ilium. And then not long after that, Bo approached me and asked me if I'd be interested in joining Kudzu Ganja.
Yeah.
That would have been probably early summer of '96.
Laugh and gave it all away. The little pink rose and a rainy day.
So yeah, that kind of kicked that off, and Kudzu, I mean, obviously just a blast playing with those guys. Brian, is just an amazing drummer and a killer dude.
He really is.
And And Jeff Floyd is just a songwriting machine. I mean, it was just always amazed me, you know, how he was just able to crank them out at will. Just not even really with an idea in his head. Just fire up the 4-track and sit down behind the drums and play a beat, you know, and walk over and, you know, pick up a guitar and just throw something down, you know, like that. And he was just always doing a lot of amazing stuff. There's actually a little kind of, it was just a recording project going on at Rehearsal-Lot called the Pygmy Devils.
Okay.
So just like it was, you know, Jeff Floyd was kind of the key guy behind all that. And it was just, you know, a lot of 4-track recordings, and, you know, various people from bands and at Rehearsal-Lot would come in and just, you know, lay stuff down, you know, that Jeff would be working on at any given time. Tony from It Could Be Nothing, you know, did a lot of things. In fact, one song on the Kudzu CD, Keep Out of Reach, was originally a Pygmy Devils song.
Okay.
You know, Bo played a lot of stuff on it, of course, and, you know, just, you know, Brian as well. So that was just kind of a little side project going on in parallel with Kudzu at the time, just like goofing around.
Yeah.
Pygmy Devils only did one gig ever, and it was at the Milestone. Let's see, the lineup for that show was Jeff, Bryant, Bo, myself, and Joel Mullis from It Could Be Nothing. So that was, I think that, to my knowledge, the only gig that the Pygmy Devils ever did.
Yeah.
Look out! Cause you kill people! Everyone still people reach beware out of reach. One, God is kind of a thing. The shit's combustible, people reach beware out of reach.
It was a big challenge for me, you know, learning all the Kudzu songs. They had a ton of songs. You had to start learning them. You know, they were real patient with me, picking all that stuff up. And it wasn't very long before we were back out playing shows.
Those guys really were so good. And I first met them pretty much when we got started in the Charlotte music scene. Ran across them at another show, and then we ended up playing harmony shows together. I didn't really appreciate how good they were until years later when I heard their stuff again. I was like, man, those guys really were really good. They were just always, I guess, we didn't follow in the same crowd because they were a little bit more polished, a little bit more, I don't know, they were a little less punk rock, although they're definitely punk rock.
Yeah.
Those guys are definitely punk rock. But it was, they'll admit that. They'll tell you that. That's the Kudzu Ganja was not really a punk rock band, although you could tell they were punk rockers.
Yeah.
But such good music. So I guess when you joined, Kevin had left the band.
Well, Kevin had left the band, and Chad Sampson was actually the guitar player just before me. And I don't think he was with Kudzu for very long at all. So when Chad left Kudzu Ganja, that was when I came in.
How long did Kudzu Ganja go after you joined the band?
It was late '98, I think, when Kudzu finally split up. Probably a little over 2 years that I was with Kudzu. In the time we recorded the full length Another Trip to the Pawn Shop CD, which again was done at Jody Derrick's basement studio, which we did 18 tracks, I think. And I did a lot of the engineering work on that and most of the final mix. Jody was definitely present for a lot of it, but I was heavily involved with the recording side of that record. We actually even wrote a couple of the tunes from that record in the studio. I think we were, in the studio. I think we were just leaving our gear there, and we're, just went on for weeks and weeks. That we're going back there and recording those songs. A lot of them were already written. A lot we, kind of wrote on the fly, and it'd be time for Jeff to do a vocal track. He didn't have any lyrics written yet, so he'd just sit down for 10 minutes with a notebook and a beer and a cigarette and crank something out and just step up and do it. Just always blew me away how effortless it was for him to do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
We played a lot, and we actually played out of town a heck of a lot more than we did in town. Really, did a couple of even like what I guess you could call like a mini tour. There was one trip we went on. We went up to New York and Connecticut. You know, one in New York City, New Haven, Connecticut, at Toad's Place, Port Chester, and New York. And I don't remember what the other one was, but I was with some guys that, you know, Bo was always setting these things up. You know, he just had so many contacts all over the place, and all those shows were with a band from New York called Flowerland that Bo was pretty tight with at the time. We also did a lot of gigs, you know, down south in Georgia, you know, Macon, Georgia, a lot of small towns like, you know, small clubs or armories, you know, VFW halls and stuff like that. Macon, Georgia, you know, played in Jacksonville a lot, you know, Pensacola, and played in New Orleans once, which was an absolute blast. Did quite a bit of traveling in the time that we were together there. So a lot of fun road trips. Yeah, I remember we played. I guess it was an armory show in. I think it was Jacksonville. It was with a band from Jacksonville that we did a number of gigs with down there called FOC, which were just a killer punk rock band. It was in an armory, and there was just 100 kids there, like all young kids, and they were just, you know, so into it. Just, you know, this killer, and we couldn't, you know, drink or anything. You know, they wouldn't let us, you know, bring any beer or anything into the place. So we were just like hanging out in the van, kind of getting our beers on and stuff before we went in there and, you know, played for them. But they were just really into it. And those young kids are, you know, really getting into, you know, like a punk rock show, and they don't really get a lot of opportunities to, you know, see things like that. It's always a lot of fun. It was weird. I mean, they were like asking for autographs and stuff like that. It was really weird. It's uncomfortable signing autographs when you're just like kind of this underground punk rock band. It's like, man, really, I'm nobody. This is, you know, but yeah, they loved it. They loved it.
Yeah, I did that recently, and I'm like, I really don't know why I'm doing this. But sure, I'll go ahead and sign this for you.
One show in particular, we were playing Savannah, and I think it was St. Patrick's Day, which is kind of a big deal in Savannah, but I think it's more of a street party there. We were playing in a club, and I don't remember the name of the club, but it was a 2-story place, and so I think it was like kind of a dance club on the first story, and then they had a stage and did bands on the second story. So we had to carry all our gear up a really narrow flight of stairs to get it up there. Yeah. And Kudzu, man, we had like super heavy duty, huge, you know, speaker cabinets. These things, you know, like weighed a ton. You know, so I always sucked when we'd have to carry those things, you know, up and down stairs or things like that. This particular case, we were playing. Jeff lost his voice, you know, right before the show. I mean, like literally nothing was coming out, no sound whatsoever. So we're kind of figuring out, well, what are we going to do? I don't think we were playing with it. We might have been playing with another band, but for whatever reason, we were playing. You know, because we had so many songs, we could play for 2 hours, you know, easy. We just, you know, the repertoire, you know, of sets we had, we like often would do that, like two long sets. Yeah. I mean, I think that was the case here. So Jeff sat down and wrote down the lyrics for every Kudzu song, you know, on like sheets of paper, and we had them laid all across the front of the stage. Because Bo and I didn't, you know any of the words to any of his songs. So Bo, we kind of figured out ahead of time, you know, Bo will sing this one, I'll sing this one. Yeah. I think even we switched up, and Jeff played drums on one, and Bryant got up and played guitar, and maybe I don't remember if he sang.
So how'd that work out? Did you pull it off pretty well?
I think we pulled it off pretty well. There's nobody there though, because they're all on the street partying for St. Patrick's Day. So I think we played for the other band, and that was it. They thought it was great, you know. But I think that might have been FOC too. I mentioned them earlier, Jacksonville band that we played with down in that area a few times. That might have been the first time we played with them, if it was them, when we originally met those guys. And yeah, they were great. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, I think we pulled it off pretty well.
You said you wanted to talk about the Rickenbacker. I know Chris had posted about the Rickenbacker recently. I guess he's got it fixed now.
Yeah, we were playing, I think, at Tremont. Bo, at the end of the set, took the Rickenbacker off and flung it high into the air where I think it almost made contact with the ceiling. Maybe it did, actually touch the ceiling. Yeah. Yeah, I looked over. I remember very clearly seeing him do that. And I was like, holy shit. It came down and, he just missed. And it just, headstock first straight into the stage and it snapped that thing right off. Yeah. I guess Rickenbackers are somewhere. I know, personally, I have a Les Paul this happened to. Les Pauls, they have that kind of angled headstock where it kind of kicks back from the neck a little bit. And I think Rickenbackers are similar. So that kind of creates a little bit of a tension where, something like that could happen, I think. Or, maybe it is kind of flat on a Rickenbacker and it just landed just right. My Les Paul once, it was just sitting on the guitar stand and I knocked it over on carpet, just on a guitar stand. And man, that headstock just popped right off, luckily that's pretty easy fix. But in this case, I think Bo kind of wrote it off. It was just like, oh, it's busted, it's toast, and then I think he, did further damage to it after that. Just kind of, it's kind of funny. We were probably, still working on the CD at the time, or maybe finishing it up, and the idea came up to. I think Bo had other basses already, but in terms of kicking an idea around of Bo replacing his bass, and he's going to make a trip to the pawn shop and buy another bass, right? Yeah. So that's where the title came up of another trip to the pawn shop, and we actually had Dan Costin came in. I found these photos the other night. Dan Costin came in, and we kind of set it up and took a bunch of photos of the busted bass and in various poses or whatever, with the idea of putting it on the cover of the record. However, a kind of a little bit of a disagreement arose on what to name the record, and I think it was split 2-2. Two of us liked Another Trip to the Pawn Shop, and two of us liked wanted to call the record Liver Mush. We couldn't really reach an agreement on one or the other, so the compromise was we're like, well, we have 19 songs on this thing, so let's peel off, 4 of those songs and call that the Liver Mush EP, and the rest of the songs are the Another Trip to the Pawn Shop LP. So the CD kind of has 2 covers. It's, No Trip to the Pawn Shop on the front and Liver Mush EP on the back. That's kind of a cool story. Bo and Dan Costin made a trip to Athens, a restaurant, ordered some liver mush, and Bo had a little ketchup bottle with some red paint in it. Got to order a liver mush and eggs, on the classic Athens plate, painted Kudzu Ganja with red paint on the liver mush. And they snapped some photos of that, and that became like the back cover of the record. So that was kind of cool. I think that same Tremont gig, I talked about It Could Be Nothing a little bit. They were opening for us, and I'm pretty sure it was that same show. They were opening for us for that night. We kind of got the idea to cover one of their songs. Maybe this was later. I might be getting my timelines mixed up because their CD was already out, and they put their CD out around the same time that we did, and ours, obviously wasn't out yet. But we covered, we decided to cover one of their songs off their record, "Drilling for Food." Yeah, and we practiced it. Rehearsal lot was long gone at the time, so they didn't know we were doing it. We wanted it to be a surprise, and I actually think we kind of nailed it. It's one of their more rockin' tunes on that record, and it was really cool. We're all worried before that we didn't know if they're going to play it in their set or not. So they're opening for us, so they started setting up, and we'll run up to the stage and look at their set list, oh good, it's not on there. They're not playing it. So it would have been weird if they played it and then we played it. So we were prepared to ditch it if they did, but luckily they didn't. And we actually pulled it off pretty well.
Drilling for food, keep my belly fed. Drilling for food, no broken tool, I'm not filled up yet. Drilling for food, pummeling poles, lost my shoes again. Drilling for food, not in the mood, now stop and pull your hands down.
I talked earlier about Jeff's ability to just crank out songs, and kind of the Pygmy Devils project, and he would just write a song about anything. It could be just the most, just whatever, everyday kind of thing. Like one song on Another Trip to the Pawn Shop is called Pleurisy, is when Jeff actually had pleurisy, had the respiratory illness, and just writing a song about the lyrics are, I can't move, I can't breathe, think I'm gonna die. It's just he could write a song about literally everything. And I think Tony, Voom and It Could Be Nothing, Lamb Handler, is kind of kind of also has that ability. Me, I try to write lyrics and I just overthink it. I'm just like trying to be too deep, or everything just sounds stupid to me. But
I relate.
One of my favorite "It Could Be Nothing" songs is "Stars, Bottle Caps, and Dead People" on "Just for the Ride." And I asked Tony once, what that was about, and it was about his room at rehearsal, because he lived there also, and he in his room he had stuck a bunch of these like glow in the dark stars all over the place, and he had posters of dead rock stars like Jim Morrison or Jimi Hendrix maybe, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think he had bottle caps tacked up in there too, and so that was like the whole song. It was about his room at rehearsal at Stars, Bottle Caps, and Dead People. But it's one of the coolest songs on the record. The way he sings, I mean, it's just he's such a good singer. I mean, just so strong and yet airy and soft, and just going from a scream to soft, so strong. It just blows me away.
Yeah.
All the stuff he does, is really cool. In 98, I think the summer of 98 is when Jody, his lease was up in the house he was in, where the basement studio was.
Yeah.
So we wanted to do a little bit more recording. So we literally, as Jody was packing his house up, we were down in the basement, and we went back and recorded a 4-song EP, which I think we did in like 2 days, and that was what became the 1998 EP. I did all the engineering and mixing on that. I mean, we literally cranked it out. We went one day, I think it was literally over a weekend, went and tracked it one day, and then went back and mixed it the next day. And, Jody's moving out. He's rolling up cables around us as we're, as we're finishing up the final mixes and stuff. So that was the last project that was done at the basement studio.
On YouTube, it says that EP was not released, or an unreleased EP.
Yeah, it wasn't. The band split up not long after we did that session. I had the DAT laying around for years, and never really, never did anything with it. We never put it out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, probably 2004, 2005, I pulled the DAT out and, did a quick and dirty mastering job on it, and burned a bunch of CDs, and, it was kind of unauthorized. I named it myself 1998 because, and did the, the kind of the rip off of the Van Halen cover of 1984, and burned it. And I kind of wanted to surprise those guys with it, and just kind of gave out some copies and stuff like that. We later did a bunch more copies of it, more recently when we did that Tremont anniversary show about 5 years ago.
Yeah, 5 years ago.
But they're really good songs. I mean, there's some of the later songs that Kudzu was working on that EP. It was a lot of fun to record, and kind of the band was definitely moving in a different direction, particularly as we, like I said, when I joined the band, there were a ton of songs that were already written. So, some of the stuff that was on that EP was, things that were more written together as a band.
It shows in the sound. The sound's a little bit different. So you can tell that there's a little bit more influence put into it.
You know you mean a lot to me. Happiness and everything. Don't catch me. Don't take it out of me. Could've seen it in my room. Just till you ran through. Breaking me in two. I'm still into you. You make it easy. You make it easy.
that was around the time. Let's see. So I was living on an apartment on 7th Street, right by where the Circle K was. I guess Small Mart or whatever it is now. After Spite split up, Byron actually moved in with me and was my roommate. And he was, towards the. That was when he met Amy, Brett's mom. In those days, and they were dating for a while. And actually, Amy was, actually living with us for a while. She was kind of a roommate for a while there too. And that was when I first met Brett, when he was probably 10 years old at the time.
Yeah.
But just a really nice kid, and was real interested in music and stuff like that. And she'd bring out sometimes to like kudzu practices and things like that. And he would just sit there and just watch Bryant and just suck up everything Bryant was doing. I mean, he just really loved Bryant's playing, and in the band, and I think it was kind of piqued his interest in what got it. But just speculating here, but kind of his earliest exposure, getting him into wanting to play the drums, just watching Bryant play.
Yeah.
Which they definitely do a lot worse than having Brian as kind of your the guy you're looking up to.
Oh yeah,
he's just an amazing drummer. So yeah, kudzu split up late 98. My daughter was born in December of 98, and I actually kind of got away from music for a few years after that. Was just kind of focused on trying to find a real job outside of restaurants and putting a family together and that sort of thing. It was still somewhat involved. I think when Semi-Pro got together, I did recorded a demo with them, remotely out at Palmer Mini Storage, and so I just like dragged my computer out there and plug in one of audio interface that Jody had at the time that I borrowed, and did one of Semi-Pro's earliest releases was recorded out in the mini storage room, and so wasn't really playing any bands at the time, but still kind of involved, talking to those guys and, trying to do recording projects here and there. Yeah.
That was early 2000s right there.
Yeah.
I think when Semi-Pro was together.
Yeah. Like 2001, 2002, something like that.
So how long was it before you played in another band again after that?
It would have been when I joined up with Dirty Box, which would have been around 2003. And Dirty Box was basically the guys from It Could Be Nothing, minus Joel. So it was Brent, Tony, and Tim Benson, Brent Holland, and Tony James, and Tim Benson. It was kind of a joke band, really. Really, it was a lot of fun, and the songs. Brent in particular likes to bring a certain sense of comedy to the stuff that he does. If you've heard like his Bub Hollow solo stuff, he likes to kind of keep it fun and things like that, and that's really what Dirty Box is about. I think a lot of the lyrics in Dirty Box probably wouldn't go off very well these days, but it was a great. I mean, those guys were all amazing players, and and Tony is just an amazing singer. A lot of fun. It Could Be Nothing was one of my favorite bands from the '90s, so it was kind of a dream for me to be jamming with those guys at all.
Exactly. And Tony, you're right. He is a great singer in everything he's ever been in. I love his voice.
We rehearsed at Queen City Underground when Neil Harper cranked that up.
Okay.
I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Queen City Underground was originally on South Tryon Street. So it was before it was even at North Carolina Music Factory, and it was in kind of a mill type building somewhere around the South End area. I don't remember exactly where, a shitty rundown building or whatever. I remember there was a church kind of sharing the building with us, which I think is ultimately why Neil ended up having to leave the place. But Neil did a number of underground punk rock shows there, and we were we were rehearsing there with along with one or two other bands. I think Neil actually approached us about saying, because whether or not we would want to be one of the bands that rehearsed there.
Yeah.
And then so Neil lost that place and then got the building at what's now the Music Factory and the VBGB building.
Yeah.
And cranked it up. So we were rehearsing there, which was actually a great rehearsal room. It was just a nice size room. Neil didn't charge us a ton of money or anything. It was super affordable. And I even remember right next to us in Queen City Underground was Brett had it was basically a closet, just his drum kit fit in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he would be there and just play. I mean, that was the way I think he was just really starting to take off and just like really start to learn the drums. He would just be in there just rocking out by himself and a tiny little closet that his kit barely fit in, but he was really killing it even in those days.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. Did Neil put on a number of shows there as well. The guy who built all that stuff out, Noah Lasses, I think is his name, kind of gave us a tour of the property one night and, took us in, the building right next door that, is the Fillmore now. And, it was just like an empty mill at the time. He's like laying out his vision of, having this 2,000 person capacity, club and, finish all the, existing hardwood floors and, the chandeliers and big stage and all that stuff. And then, talking about what's called the Underground now, which I think he kind of maybe snagged that name from Queen City Underground, Neil.
Yeah, but, I think so too.
Yeah, talking about doing a smaller club there and just his vision of, restaurants and, and bars and things like that. And we're like, man, you're crazy. Nobody's going to come down here. At the time, Music City Boulevard didn't exist. He was trying to get approval from the city to build that entryway in there. You had to, the way you came in was off of Graham Street, and you had to cross over the railroad tracks right there where like those mills and stuff are. And, frequently those trains would stop there, and you like go to rehearsal and there'd be a train stopped across the only way to get in, because it's loading up and you'd be sitting there forever waiting for the train to move. So you get to Queen City Underground.
I think I only went out there once, and I don't even remember who I saw out there. But when I went out there, Neil was telling me about the ideas for that place, and it's what it became. It just didn't really involve Neil after that. So but he went to the Milestone, so that worked out.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was, he had kind of had the vision for the place. I don't, know what was going on behind the scenes between him and Noah, but I think he was really excited about reopening the Milestone and getting that cranked up. And of course, he did an amazing job with it. And just, the time he said, I think he was living there for a long time, but built a really great sound system, kind of fixed the place up, and to the extent that Milestone can be fixed up, because I think it was in pretty bad shape, when he took it over, because I don't know if Bill Flowers is kind of renting the place out to some people as needed, and like doing some underground shows in there where a lot of the original graffiti got spray painted over and stuff like that. We're taking very good care of the place, but got in there and got it cranked up again, and man, it was just like a new era for the Milestone. It was killer. Dirty Box played there a ton, in those days when Neil was running it.
Yeah, we played there. I guess it was 2005 before we played there when Neil was running it, and that was we had broken up for a little while, and then Saunders decided he wanted to play again, so we got back together and played a handful of shows in like 2 years, the last 2 years between 2005 2007. But it was just so great to be back at the Milestone, and Neil running it was just perfect.
Pretty sure you guys played with us, Dirty Box, one show there. If am I wrong about that, or
I'm not real sure, because I'm trying to remember if I ever saw you guys. I don't know. I'd like to. I don't know if I have flyers for all those shows or not. I've got flyers for some of them. I know we played with Sapco and Jellicoe, and the Side was our last show that we played there. One time we played with the Independents, and we played before the Independents, but after we played, a lot of people either left or just went and hung out on the patio, and there were like maybe 12, 15 people watching the Independents. And then Neil told me that night, he said, from now on, you guys are not playing for you guys are playing last every time you play. Because you guys bring out people that drink, and they drink a lot, and then when you get finished playing, they leave. He said, so So that was really interesting, but it was a lot of fun that in those days. But I don't remember if we played together or not.
I thought I seem to remember that we did, but I could.
We may have. It's my memory on a lot of that time is real fuzzy. So
it is real fuzzy. I don't know why, but
I just attribute it to age. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. So Dirty Box recorded a full-length CD down in Atlanta, and Joel Mullis, the guitar player for It Could Be Nothing, recorded that project for us. He was working at a studio down in Atlanta. Joel actually worked on a lot of pretty big rap projects at that studio. I think he like did some stuff with like Yin Yang Twins and some David Banner, some of the larger rap artists in the Atlanta scene.
Yeah,
but that was a really, really nice studio, and Joel just did a hell of a job on it. I think it's a really great sounding record, and the best record in terms of quality that I've been involved with as far as playing. Did an outstanding job with it.
It sounds good. It's a fun record. It's really good. I like it a lot.
Marijuana, your mama, and LSD, make the wanna, and try to naturally, well, getting high is the answer, but staying high is the key. You could obey your master, or smoke the bowl with me,
Yeah, it was a pretty huge sound. Tony playing guitar as well, so we had the two guitar players. So it made for we actually, I thought we played really well off each other, and it made for a really great sound. And Brent and Tim, I mean those guys are just lockstep. All the time they played together, and It Could Be Nothing. They were just like as solid as it can get for a rhythm section. Dirty Box kind of phased out in. I guess it was 2006, and those guys went on and did Lamb Handler with Jay Fernandez on guitar.
Yeah.
Not long after that, I hooked up with the Smoking Rocks, which was Jeff Floyd, Fred Hutchinson, Bryant, and Pete Friedman on bass, which is a lot of fun. The 3 guitars, so we were loud as hell, and we were practicing out at Palmer Mini Stores, but with the 3 guitars, it was a little difficult to, I guess, find your spot, but because we're all the 3 of us, we're all very different players for sure.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. It was really loud, kind of punk rock, but kind of blending into hard rock kind of stuff, but really cool stuff. And again, Jeff, writing a ton of the music that we did with that. We didn't play. I think that only lasted about a year. Played a number of gigs. Played with Sapco a few times. You mentioned that. All of those guys. And we played the Visualite once. Of course, the Milestone a couple times. But
it seems like I saw you guys play with Sapco one time.
Yeah.
What did you do after that?
I actually I went on a long hiatus after that, and I didn't play very much at all for quite a number of years. My son was born in 2003, so he was pretty young, and I kind of focused on working and my family and stuff like that, and kind of got away from playing altogether. I goof around the acoustic sometimes, often with Jody. Jody and I have been friends for a really long time, and still get together and like to jam on acoustics, just goofing around, camping trips or in the backyard, cookouts and things like that. Around 2013, I started jamming with Jody, and an old friend of Jody's named John Russell was a drummer, and we're kind of goofing around John lives out in Midland and has an outbuilding, and we're
Mm-hmm.
kind of goofing around playing covers. And that was, kind of on and off for a few years, just really just kind of messing around just for the fun of it. And then probably I started getting a renewed interest, I guess, in that, and wanted to, I wanted to really, take my playing to the next level. So I saw an ad in, I guess it was on Craigslist or something for, somebody giving guitar lessons, kind of focused on, a theory and that sort of thing. And, I kind of got into, music theory a little bit when I was in high school, and I was, taking lessons from Todd Miller, but never really got, super deep into it or anything like that.
Yeah.
Actually, this ad, and it turned out it was Carl Logan from Manowar. So I took lessons from Carl for about a year. So Carl, I don't want to get into it, has had some legal issues going on right now. So if anybody's interested in that, just Google it. I don't really want to talk about that. But he did teach me a lot about theory, and I think it kind of opened up some new avenues for me personally in my playing, and I started focusing more on trying to become a better lead player, which I've never really done. Kind of when I played leads in the past, it was pretty basic pentatonic type stuff, and kind of not straying very far out of the box. But I think he opened up some stuff for me, maybe started taking it to the next level. I started practicing a ton and trying to get a lot better in terms of that, and still just kind of on and off doing the cover stuff. Then last year, around the summer of last year, actually Fred Hutchison and I went to the Sleep Show at a neighborhood theater, and he said, hey, you should come out and jam with us at Poontanglers. And so it's like, cool, and he sent me some tunes. I actually went out and watched the Poontanglers play. They actually played a show at neighborhood theater just a few weeks later, and kind of watched them. I was like, and Poontanglers, I mean, they're that kind of old school metal sound, that I loved when I was in high school. And just like really, I got really excited about playing, that type of music. It also was super intimidating because, I mean, Poontanglers, dude, they're fast, it's really, really fast and really long songs. So, it was definitely a challenge to get ramped up playing those tunes. When I played my first Poontanglers gig, I guess it was late summer, early fall last year, I'd only practiced with them twice when we played that first gig at Snug Harbor. And the first practice, Dave Schoaf, the other guitar player, wasn't even there. So it was kind of intimidating to come into, the very first practice with a new band, and the other guitar player couldn't make it. So okay, you play them. Those guys are great. Rodney's awesome. Paul and Dave Schoaf, and of course Fred on drums, and really cool, down to earth guys. A lot of fun to play with. Just really excited to kind of get going with them. We played a show this past Halloween at Snug, which was a pretty huge show. I didn't realize I hadn't been out to Snug on Halloween. I know Poontanglers that I've done these Halloween shows a number of times. They started talking about it, leading up to it, and like they said they generally do like a theme, and I was thinking, as in like they're saying this year we're going to be the Scorpions, and I'm like, okay, I was thinking, in terms of just like dressing up in a costume or something like that, and Chef is like, no, we're actually going to play Scorpion songs.
Yeah.
So like, okay, and then like Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue and past years and stuff like that, and I was like, wow. So you just like sit down and you had to sit down and learn like I think we did like 5 or 6 Scorpion songs, and we dressed up in Scorpions costumes, and I don't mean like the band, but like the actual
wow,
a Scorpion. So Rodney found these awesome costumes, so we're all, and Dave Schoaf was actually Scorpion from Mortal Kombat. The rest of us were just regular Scorpion, but it was hilarious, and I think we pulled it off pretty well. So we played like 5 Scorpion songs and then like 3 Poontanglers songs, and the place was packed, and it was just an absolute blast.
Yeah,
one of the best times I've had playing in years, really. So, but it was a lot of fun. We're supposed to be playing at Tommy's on April 17th, but Not looking too good on that one, I guess. But
No, not
I
really.
guess we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, I guess given the new statewide order, that's probably out for sure. But hopefully we'll get up past all this, and hopefully this summer we'll be back out there and doing some shows again.
Rock your own flesh and bone from the grave. Scream to mouth as the dead walk again. They creep and crawl and there's unholy government. So lost and lonely and they're coming after you. No prayers or superstitions. Alchemists, no magicians. No heroes left to save you. From the living dead, more bodies will arise. Doesn't matter now what time. Oh, how the undead crave you. There's a living dead and raised.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that summer's maybe optimistic, but if this goes on for 2 months or if it goes on for 18 months, on the other side of all this, I'm really looking forward to seeing live music again.
I think everybody's going to be. I think it's going to be. Everybody's going to be ready to get out and do something. So I think there could be a resurgence on the local music scene. I was going to say, my worry is that the clubs will survive this. It's going to be tough for them. That we'll see who makes it through this, and hopefully some of these places like Tommy's or whatever that their landlords are working with them on it. That's my hope that
I certainly hope so.
Able to reopen their doors once we get past all this stuff.
But the good thing is I think bands are trying to find ways to keep active online and keep people engaged. I don't know that live streams are so going to be the way to do it because they don't really seem to, the quality's not really there. And now with the new statewide order, that makes even doing that tough. Yeah. Unless you're sitting at home with an acoustic guitar. Yeah. And I don't really care to sit around and watch those all night either. So
no,
out there, if you're going to get online with an acoustic guitar, I'm probably, I might watch a couple of minutes of it, but I'm probably not going to watch 30 minutes.
Right. Yeah. I know a lot of
just finding ways to put music out there or different ways to promote music or be online and do live things, engage people in different ways. Mm-hmm. Just so on the other side of all this, everybody remembers the bands that are out there.
Yeah. I kind of think, and my hope is that we're going to see kind of a new golden age of music and art as all these musicians and artists are kind of cooped up in the house and writing new music, practicing our instruments, getting better. I don't know, what it's going to look like. Hopefully can figure out ways to, still get together with our bandmates and that sort of thing online to some extent, or whatever we can do, whether it's, trading ideas, recording stuff and sending it to each other. Yeah. I've actually been doing some stuff with Brent. He's working on his fifth Bub Hollow record now. Yeah. And I'm playing on like 4 tracks on that. And we actually kicked that off a couple months ago and went over to his place and recorded some stuff and put some guitar down on some stuff and helped him in terms of running his recording rig while he, did some vocals or bass and things like that. And he's actually finishing that up now. Actually, he asked me to do one more guitar track for him. So I'm actually going to do that this weekend. And he's going to, he's doing the final mixes on stuff. I think he's just waiting on me for that final track. He's already been in touch with Rob Tagliavone about mastering that, once he gets finished. So I think he's probably going to be putting that out pretty soon, probably, in the next few weeks, I would imagine, because he seems like he's ready to just, get it done and get it out there.
I think that's what the feeling a lot of people have right now is let's put something out there. Let's give people something to listen to and give people something to remember us by, for one thing. When we realized that our EP release show at Repo was probably going to be canceled, we went ahead and decided to release the EP earlier. For what it's worth, it worked out. I think it worked well. People paid attention to it, and then we'll get another run of people paying attention to it when it comes out on Spotify in a few weeks. So, just trying to keep things active, and we'll probably do some of that, trying to collaborate, just via distance. I've already talked to Eric about trying to record some ideas and send them back and forth. Yeah. So on the other side of all this, we won't be able to practice for a little while, but when we get back together, it's going to be just that much more fun. Make us appreciate it that much more. And then when we finally get to play again, that's going to be a lot of fun just to get to see everybody's faces again.
Yeah, gonna be a lot of pent up energy as we're all sitting in our house for however many weeks or months this lasts, and I think I think and I hope and I believe that everybody's just going to be ready to get out and do stuff, and that old friends will start coming back together and reconnecting and getting out there and seeing shows or whatever. Hopefully later this summer we'll start seeing some activity again and get back out there and do stuff.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. And I hope, like you said, in the meantime, that everybody's working on new stuff. But all indications so far is that everybody spend their time watching Tiger King. But so if they get past that and then start working on some creative stuff.
Wow. I watched the first episode of that last night. I'm just like, I can't decide if I want to continue watching this or just forget I ever saw that.
Yeah, I've seen clips of the guy, and I'm not ready to dive into the program yet because I just don't really watch that much TV to begin with, and so I rarely turn it on, and I don't want an excuse to turn it on right now. I want to use this to do some things, be productive and creative, and so.
I think you're doing a great thing here, and I mean, as people are going to be sitting at home and looking for stuff to do, it's great that people like you are producing content to the extent you can, and getting that stuff out there, and I think it's a great thing that you're doing for the scene in general. I've been enjoying listening to your podcast on my commute to work. It's you've done some great interviews. With a lot of these guys so far. It's really really cool stuff, man.
I appreciate it. And I'm just trying to get, some people interested in it in a different way, or just to get it out there and promote the things that I love. And the things I love are music, and local music in particular. Yeah. And I think we've got some great talent in this area, and I just want to promote that any way we can, because we don't really have a lot of coverage from anything really. And I'll keep doing it and find different ways to do it, and find different ways to get people interested. And hopefully it translates, like you said, when all this is on the other side. And I don't really know what's going to happen with the zine in the meantime, because if this goes on for a few months, obviously there's not going to be anywhere I can take a physical copy of a zine. Right. So I may put that on hold for a little bit and just focus on doing it online for a little bit, and be ready to put one out whenever we all can go back out again. Yeah. And just kind of pick back up there. So it's changed. I was talking to my brother earlier, and I said it's changed my goals a little bit this year, but I'm just having to adjust what I'm doing in order to work with what the hand we've been dealt with is. It doesn't change my end goal at all, just change the steps I got to get there.
with this motherfucker. I was riding with this motherfucker. Riding with this motherfucker. Riding with this motherfucker. I was riding with this motherfucker. I was riding, 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 riding.
This has been a Gabba Gabba Hunt Media production.